Hello, good morning, and welcome to BBRC, Britain and English. Thank you very much for joining me here today, and that extends to any of you from overseas. Well, today it's quite cloudy, but yesterday, about 5 o'clock or after 5 o'clock, half past 5 probably, it was quite bright, certainly. The sun was out, blue sky, and shows that spring is in the air. And any of you who lives in England will realise that actually the evenings do draw out after the 21st of December, and that goes on until about the 21st of June, when they draw in again towards the autumn. But certainly, there's been a bit of flooding in the locality. Well, I say locality, certainly around Gloucestershire, and certainly Tewkesbury seen a lot of flooding, and anybody who's seen any of my other shorts may have noticed there's trademark flooding over there in Tewkesbury, around the peripheral areas, certainly the perimeter, and perhaps even all the way over, which is about 9 miles, to Gloucester, which is what? Flatland mainly, but they keep building. Another thing, they're building on floodplains. How foolish is that? Of course, to meet the demands of housing, but these houses are so expensive. Now, I'd like to just use that as a footing for any of you. I know some people have asked me questions about living here. You've also asked me if I can give you any money. Well, I must say, and I've said to other people as well, people always tend to think, and also I spoke to some people from certain other countries in Asia and Africa who say, could you lend me $500 or something, you know. They've not realised we're actually using pounds here. I don't know why. Perhaps they think we're using, I don't know, perhaps they've confused it, I don't know. But we're certainly not using euros. And I think a lot of the, well, it was 1999, a lot of the countries went into the euro. We were going to delay it, and then we went out of Europe anyway, as you know, which was what, I think that's about, what, 5 years ago now? The big rancour and debate and division over that. But, any of you, going back to what I was saying, any of you interested in coming to Britain, what you may not realise is the income does not always meet the costs. And certainly, you may have a part-time job, you may have a full-time job, and if you're coming from overseas, you'll have to get a visa. Now, there are some people who've got highly skilled jobs, qualified jobs, such as nursing, a very valid job. There are some nursing care assistants as well. Care assistants which don't actually work for the NHS, they go around in the community and they care for people perhaps who are infirm, elderly, disabled, that sort of thing. But certainly, you will find the rents are quite expensive here. Now, I spoke to at least 3 or 4 people who've come here in the last 2 or 3 years who've said they wouldn't come again. They would not come. They would change, you know, they probably would go back if they had a chance now. They may even go back. Some have gone back. Others have said, well, they're going to see what happens, but they're very concerned. They don't have a lot of money left at the end of the week, and certainly the costs are very high compared to what you actually earn, because it all goes out on rent. So the biggest factor for outgoings is rent. Flats are very expensive. You can rent a room in a shared house if you want to. You might be with a little load of Eastern Europeans. You might find them very nice. They might be a bit difficult. I've lived in shared houses before. Some are fine. Some actually don't like living with other people and other cultures. But as you know, in the English style, the English way, we're normally used to living with all sorts of other cultures and whatever they want to do and whatever they want to say and anything else. I mean, I used to live in Sunderland, and a lot of Chinese used to cook a curry every night. I can remember all the curry smells. And then there was Nigerians bringing all the mates in. I've lived with French, Italians, Germans, and they've all got their cultural traits and their quirks. So do realise the costs here don't always meet the outgoings. You won't have any savings unless you've got a really good job. And certainly there's a lot of competition, as you can well imagine. And certainly it is not easy to live here. The accommodation is like an absolute nightmare. And also the childcare costs are an absolute abomination. And you know the political sphere at the moment, it's an absolute nightmare. With Keir Starmer totally incompetent. I don't think that's wrong to say. I'm sure that a lot of his core Labour supporters, the party he's part of, have said the same thing. In fact, I've heard they've said the same thing. And they're going to a more working class party. They're sick and tired of what's been going on. He's made U-turn after U-turn. Actually, not that I get political, but he's actually now allowing 16-year-olds to vote. Now, a lot of people said, well, 16-year-olds to vote? Your mind doesn't really develop fully until you're sort of 17, 18. So are they going to make the right decisions? Will they just vote for the Greens because their mates do, or the monster raving loony party? because they got a mate who does, or the teachers told them, or the college tutor, all that sort of thing. So it's not really ideal. They need to think logically, but they've also said young people don't want to vote. I think Keir Starmer barking up the wrong tree, thinking that somehow they're going to vote for him because they vote for Labour, because their families have or whatever else, because they used to be working class. It's a lot of rubbish. Basically, they'll vote, probably won't vote at all, or they'll vote for anybody, and it'll just divide the vote completely. Well, anyway, looking towards the spring and Lent, all that aside, and the challenges in Britain today, I wanted to just say, I had a lady who I known for a while. She lived in London. She had nothing but trouble with her telephone, her mobile smartphone. Now, the phone was full up of data. The sort of thing. Anybody who's got a smartphone realises at times it fills up. You've probably taken too many photographs or something, and your 16 or 32 gig or whatever it is filled up. And of course, nowadays, a lot of phones don't have the expandable memory, and you haven't got the removable battery, so you can't put a memory card in there. And if the battery goes, well, you've got to take it to repair and probably pay about 40 quid. Then you've got to buy the battery or whatever it is. So in that respect, it's quite expensive, but certainly it's probably better not to take too many photographs of the same thing. And a lot of things, this lady had, she had a lot of sort of probably AI generated videos sent to her from America and other people she knows. She's actually from another country, and there was all sorts of things she didn't want, she hadn't even looked at. So she asked me to delete it. So I deleted a good probably 15 gig of data, which freed up a lot of space for her, but she didn't need it. So maybe just tell people you don't really want all these emojis and videos and whatever else it is that they're sending. And also, if you're going to take a photograph of something, perhaps take one photograph. Don't take 6 of the same thing. No, not necessary. Just takes up space. And also, if you can go to a place like Boots, the chemist, and print out photographs you want to. A little bit more challenging with a smartphone, obviously with the wire and everything. And some wires, as I'm finding, don't always connect. So you've got to actually try another one if you've got 2, or buy another one. I've even noticed brand new ones don't seem to connect for data transfer or anything else. But that's why I've deleted a lot of things, and probably the best way, because data's a nightmare. Where do you store it? And of course, it does end up being quite costly at the end of the day. I know people have got iPhones, probably it's the cloud, isn't it? iCloud or something. But then again, it's still more data. And are you going to look at it again? You may never look at it again. And I've lost a lot over the years. Our phone's gone pop, stopped completely, lost everything. Couldn't find anything because the phone just went off. So begin to wish I didn't, actually. If I wanted the photographs, I wish I'd perhaps somehow be able to keep them, but I didn't at the time. And of course, we're over reliant on mobile phones. And there was a case a while ago, another case, which I probably should tell you about if you are coming to England. I noticed a lady, I think she was Chinese or Malaysian. There were some bugs going around, and they went past her. This was in London. It doesn't always happen. Most people are very helpful and honest, and if I find anything, I hand it to the police. And I do try to help people with whatever I can do. But there are some criminal gangs, mostly Eastern Europeans, certainly. They may be immigrant gangs. They could be just gangsters from rough areas. I don't know. But they did steal a phone off a girl when she was probably on Google Maps or something. And they took it out of hand and cycled away. She ran off after them. That was actually in central London, Victoria Street. So it's not always the peripheral areas. It's not always the rough areas. Not always around Tower Hamlets or wherever else, although there's some very nice people around there. And I know some deprived areas got some exceptionally nice people. There's quite a lot of deprivation around here. But people are very nice, and there's a lot of people who do a lot of good for the area and the community atmosphere. But there are, of course, the more deprived, perhaps rough element as well. You get that in most places. But just to say this, I wanted to help her, but I couldn't. We had to go. I was with somebody else. We had to go. And that sort of thing can happen sometimes, or the police are clamping down. But of course, with a mobile object like a mobile phone or a bike, they look at it the same way. And, well, it's a bit like looking for a needle in a haystack. So in that respect, please beware that sometimes if you're holding the phone up in the air all the time, it's not a very good idea, because at times you can be a sitting target for having the phone taken off you. So do beware. It's not always going to happen, But like I say, London's very multicultural. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of different crowds around. And of course, they will pick on tourists. But they do in Paris, where they come up to you and they try and, I think, is it the Eiffel Tower? They try and give you a glass of champagne, especially if you're a couple. And all of a sudden they'll make sure you've drunk it, then start charging an extortionate amount of money to have this for this glass of champagne, or they'll try and sell you the rest of the bottle that they've just poured out. So you're actually in a bit of a vulnerable situation straight away. And if you don't speak very much French and they don't speak very much English, you are in a bit of a predicament there, and it's not right. And these touts should be avoided, because they're just actually using the tourists as mugs. Another criminal gang, probably maybe the same one, but I do know that a lot of these gangs go around. Saw them in Spain. They get, like I say, France. They go around, but there is an Eastern European gang that were going around a while ago. I think in the southeast, but of course they do branch out to other cities. They may go to other tourist areas, prime tourist areas. And they might end up in other cities like Birmingham, Manchester, and perhaps other places where tourists might go, such as Oxford. But what they were doing is, rather deviously and perhaps covertly, going into little cafes, brazenly, or even outside the cafes where there's some seating, especially in the summer, and with a big map asking directions and things in the broken English. But the big problem was, people are very amicable and decent, and they'll try and help you in this country in the main, mostly. And certainly I would. They'll try and help you find where you want to go. But what they were doing is putting this big map, probably one of those big ordnance survey maps you can buy in some of the shops, like, well, what was W.H. Smith, now T.G. Jones, or perhaps some of the bookshops or whatever else. Anyway, and the tourist shops would have them as well, those big massive maps, and put them over the table. Well, of course, what they were doing is, unfortunately, I think there was two of them. There was one asking all the details of where it was, trying, and broken English, not understanding, kept asking the same question over and over, asking where this particular pinpoint was, this landmark, whatever it was. And the other chap was actually had his hand under the map. Now, he was taking people's mobile telephones, so he was taking the ladies' smartphones. But it wasn't just a smartphone. Like everything, it's the data. You might have got your bank details on there. You've got things on there which you haven't got anywhere else, because everything's gone digital these days, which a lot of people are standing up against, by the way, with this Keir Starmer wanting us to have digital ID. Where's it going to end up? Is it going to be in China or Russia? Nobody knows. But certainly, they were taking these mobile phones, and they actually interviewed one lady, and she had all her new baby photographs on there. So she lost all that. So that was another thing. So don't be too reliant on mobile telephones. I mean, I know I'm a little bit old-fashioned on this. I was probably quite late buying a little digital camera, the handheld digital point-and-shoot cameras. But my rule of thumb was, if you don't want your battery to go down, you're not sure when you're next going to get to the next power source, or if you're out all day or whatever, certainly perhaps a little small digital camera for a little few photographs of the main landmarks. I don't see people with them now so much. I think the last person I saw one of those was probably in the 60s, perhaps early 70s. So therefore, they're not really. They used to be the cutting edge technology, those digital cameras. But now, of course, everybody's got a phone. It's all on the phone. But of course, that does mean you lose. The battery goes down, and you're using a lot of space on your phone. I must admit, if you're ever coming from abroad to stay, if ever you think about living here, illegal immigration is probably talked about virtually every particular politics show, especially at the moment with all the illegal immigration. Nobody knows what's happening, and all the demand on the services here, which people don't think about in an island country. But also, immigration is a massive political football, because a lot of people have been let in over the years, and perhaps they've been too lax about it. And a lot of people are very annoyed about what's happening. Because they're not seeing the services for the ordinary indigenous population here now, which is struggling. And Keir Starmer's hitting a lot of barriers on things, trying to cut back, cut welfare, cut spending, cut pension credits, all these other things. Farmers are struggling. Businesses, pubs are closing. Some of you from abroad might say, oh, well, pubs, drinking. But these are community assets, really. It's not all about drinking too much, getting drunk. It's about having the odd drink, social atmosphere. I mean, even King Charles, before he was Prince Charles, King Charles, Prince Charles said, why don't the pub become the hub of the community? So, for example, if you haven't got your local shop, you haven't got the post office, why don't you have those in the pub once a week? You know, once or twice a week. And it's a good idea, really. Have everything in one building. And, of course, the community atmosphere as well, and a hub to meet up. One quick area which I was going to mention, which perhaps you've noticed, I haven't got a tie on today. Now, I have bought a few new ties. There's a Marks & Spencer's tie that was in the sale. What do you think of the colour there? But it leads me on to the fact that you're not seeing many people wearing ties these days. You're not seeing many men wearing ties. Not even in professional organisations. You're not seeing uniforms so much as you used to. I think since the pandemic that's gone perhaps rather lax and informal. But I can remember my grandfather used to wear a tie every day, even at home, unless he was gardening. That's all changed. He retired in, 1981, but he used to wear a tie after that. I think he died in, 1990. Yeah, he retired in, 81, 82. So it's a very long time ago. But I haven't got a tie today. Some people think it's more relaxing. Some people, I think probably it goes back to some of our hot summers when it's too hot to wear a tie. But of course, these things stick sometimes. Perhaps wearing informal shoes as well. Don't wear the traditional black shoes. And salesmen now don't seem to wear ties, as my dad's noticed. But there we are. But hopefully we can keep some of the traditions alive. I've got a number of ties as well. Some go with the shirt, some don't. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention that because you might notice quirks when you come to England, whenever you're from overseas. And certainly even churches, people are not dressing very smart these days. I think with the exception of the Caribbean people, or the Africans perhaps, though maybe they can teach us all a lesson. I know a girl from Hong Kong in Gloucester, it's about 9 miles away, who said, well, you know, she doesn't really want to talk to Hong Kong people. She doesn't want to talk to a lot of Chinese people. She says there's too much Chinese stuff in this country. She says, well, why is everything so Chinese? Everything she buys is Chinese. But she was saying, well, I don't get to speak to many people. I don't really want to speak to many people. I want to know the English culture. But she said, I'm finding the cost of living and the job situation has been quite tough. And she's done a bit of agency work. And she's actually looking for another job now. And she's also moved. But she's finding the cost very expensive. So there's another example. Somebody who's moved here. There's another lady, I think she's South African. And she's doing some domiciliary care work. And that, you know, that's just a genuine job. You're doing a lot of work for people. It's quite rewarding. You're helping somebody. Genuinely helping people out, perhaps a bit different to the odd supermarket work and things like that, and cleaning jobs. And the reward is you are serving the community where there's desperate need for people who perhaps are more vulnerable as well. But it is a challenge trying to pay rent, especially in some of the towns now, and the cities gone right up in rent. The costs are very high, and of course not only that, the grocery bill's gone up as well. Probably I should say probably something like 20% in the last probably 18 months or so, I should think. A lot to do with Keir Starmer. The markets and everything else are quite concerned about what's going to happen, whether he's going to resign or not, what's going to happen next. A volatile 18 months and no end of total turmoil, shall we say. Unusually, as never heard before. Unprecedented times, as they say. Well, there we are. So do think carefully. This has been BBRC Britain and English. Looking forward towards the spring and Lent. Those of you who are Christians might be looking to what you're going to do for Lent and give up perhaps. I'll leave it there and I hope you have a great week. Thank you now. God bless you. Bye-bye now.